Today's edition of Mac Voices is brought to you by Blue Apron. Blue Apron delivers fresh ingredients and recipes to your door so you can cook something new and interesting tonight. Check out this week's menu and get your first 3 meals free with free shipping by visiting blueapron.com/MacVoices. Blue Apron, a better way to cook. And by MacVoices Magazine, our free Flipboard magazine that brings you some of the best Mac, iPhone, and iPad productivity tips on the web. High in signal, low in noise, just like MacVoices, MacVoices Magazine includes information on how you can get more out of your Apple technology. Subscribe at macvoices.com/magazine or search for MacVoices Magazine on Flipboard. Welcome to the MacJury on MacVoices. This is the talk of the Apple community, and I'm Chuck Joyner. Folks, we decided to do a little discussion on Internet of Things devices and hubs and intelligent things that you can talk to. The basis for this was a discussion that one of our guests posted a question in the Mac Voices group on Facebook, and then a couple of our other guests chimed in with some opinions, and this is where we end up. So we thought it might be interesting just to transfer this over, have a little real-time stuff, interaction, and learn a little bit more about each other's needs and wants when it comes to this kind of thing. So I'll assign the roles in a minute, but let me go around the room or virtual room and let you know who's here, and then we'll take it from there. So first up, and I'm going to move from left to right on my screen because that makes it easy for me, Allison Hartley of the Tech Doctor podcast. Allison, welcome. It's great to have you.
Thank you. I'm glad to be back, Chuck.
So I just stole your thunder. I'm sorry. The Tech Doctor podcast is where I know you from, as well as MacStock. But what else is there that you want to tell folks about?
Well, the Tech Doctor podcast is a big part of what I do in terms of my contribution to the Apple and accessibility communities, and you can find that at dr-carter.com. I'm also pretty prolific on Twitter. You can follow me at Apple Alley. That's APPLEALLI.
Yeah, you're not opinionated at all, Allison.
Not in the least.
Not a bit, no. Well, it's great to have you. Thanks for being here.
Thank you.
Next up, she's becoming kind of a fixture around here. I don't quite know how this has happened, but I like it. Kelly Guimont. Kelly, welcome.
Hi, Chuck. Good
to have you back as always.
Yeah, it's really great to be here. I'm always excited when you invite me to do a show. This is always fun.
So what are you claiming as your places of publication this week?
Well, this week I'm gonna say the current episode of Mac Break Weekly, because I did that yesterday, and you can hear me on the Daily Observations podcast over at macobserver.com, and I occasionally write over there, and I think more of that's going to start happening as more Internet of Things conversations keep happening, and I keep ending up as part of them. So I have a lot to say about that. So I'm probably going to have more of that coming there soon.
Great. Well, it's always a pleasure to have you. Last but absolutely not least, Mr. Neil Pan. Neil, welcome back. It's been a little while since you were on the show or since I've seen you in an airport.
That's true, Chuck. Thanks again for having me on board here. I really appreciate it and enjoy sharing.
So you have a completely different take on the technology community because you come at it from an architectural standpoint.
Yes, I do. I'm a licensed architect in California. As you can probably tell, it's still sunny outside, although Chuck doesn't have a window behind him, so you can't see. It's dark where he's at. But yeah, so the technology, I use my Mac for architecture, and used to do that more on a regular basis since before I joined a firm, and now I'm working on the dark side, but more on a daily basis. But I did use my Mac for my business for 7 years and in architecture. So I approach things maybe a little bit differently than your typical Apple user in this, kind of in our circles of the Mac world of the TMOs and the other podcasts about Apple.
Well, it's always great to have you because I always am intrigued to hear the way you approach things because it sometimes does come from an angle that I'm not familiar with.
Oh, I appreciate it.
Well, and you're the guy that kind of started this, because you posted in the MacVoices Facebook group a query about which device to buy, and I'll let you just describe the situation and what you needed to know.
Sure. So I received a call from my mother, who's about, I think she's 71 now, and she asked me a kind of an odd question. Was I want to get that thing that you talk to. And I was like, okay, what are we talking about? Now, to set the table here, my mom doesn't have a computer. She doesn't have an iPad. She doesn't even have a cell phone. So she's very much not a technology person at all. And so I asked her kind of what she wanted to get, and threw out the names of the Amazon Echo and also the Google Home as potential ideas. And she said, yeah, I think that thing, I've heard about that, or I saw it on TV or something. And so I really wasn't sure, because I don't have one of these devices. I've been secretly kind of hoping that Apple might do something in this field, and they haven't yet. And so, and there's some probably, I want to get into some things about that and privacy and such, why I think Apple might be better at this than some of the other competitors. But right now, they're not an option. So I threw it out there to the MacVoices Facebook group to kind of tap into some other people's knowledge about which device might be best to get my mom.
And I thought it was an interesting thing to ask about. Kelly and I had just had a little discussion about some of this as part of a 4 questions session on MacVoices. And so Kelly was one of the first ones to chime in. And then Allison, I specifically went and asked Allison to come in and talk about it, because as fate would have it, she had just posted something on Twitter about Google Home. And so I thought, okay, this is a really interesting discussion. A couple of the people threw in, but you all were sort of the main components. So, but I'm curious, did she ever figure out exactly which one she thought it was, that the thing you talked to, which one she was referencing?
Yeah, so when I mentioned the name Echo, that was the one she had heard about, so maybe through a commercial or something like that. I'm not really sure. I just received it, actually, so I'm grabbing the box here. So I haven't actually installed it yet, but I hope to do that in the next day or two. So we'll see how it works. So I don't have any direct experience with it yet, but I can kind of, we'll probably get there, but talk about why I chose that device over the Google Home.
Great. Allison, I'm going to let you jump in next and talk about your experience with Google Home, because it's the one that I don't have any experience with at all. And so I'm curious as to why you selected it and what your judgment is.
Sure. So I have a bit of a gadget addiction. So I had been using the Amazon product, which is right next to me, so I don't want to name it, for a couple of years. I actually got in on the beta when it came out, and I was one of the early Prime members to get it. And it's great, especially in terms of playing music and getting accessing timers and things, and playing music and all of the daily things that I would want to do with the voice assistant in the home. But I've been curious about the Google Home, so about a week ago I sprung for it. It was on sale for $129, and it has pretty much replaced the Amazon device for me for everything except for buying products off of Amazon. I really like the app a lot better for setup and configuration. It's a much more user-friendly experience. It doesn't crash so much. I like the fact that I'm leveraging the entire power of Google when I ask a question, that I'm getting very up-to-date information, that Google cites her sources when she's telling me where she's getting information from. I find the music experience to be a lot better on Google, in terms of the other day I asked it to play a song, and then it proceeded to make me a really interesting radio station that I listened to for a couple of hours based on that song. And I have used pretty much all of the popular music services. I've been a Pandora fan. I've used Spotify, Apple Music, Google Play Music to a little extent outside of here, but I found that asking it to play a song and getting a really curated radio station was the single best radio experience I've had on a device. That's some of the big things I've managed to do with it in the short time I've had it so far. I like the fact that it has games. I have not really delved into the skills that you can add to it, if any, at this point. I know that the developer API just recently opened up. But I am just really loving it. I find that she provides more concrete news sources in terms of the length of the briefings that you can get. She tells you the time at which news was updated. It's been a really great experience working with the Google Home so far.
Allison, I don't want to take us down a rat hole right away, but one thing that surprises me a little, does it come with, or did you subscribe to the Google Play music service, or is that just part of the whole?
This is kind of embarrassing. I forgot that a while ago I had subscribed. I am subscribed to several music services between my husband and I forgot that I had subscribed. And when I opened up the app and was setting up my default music service, it gave me the option of YouTube Music or Google Play Music, and it said, "You are a premium subscriber." And I said, "Really?" I completely forgot. So I do pay for the premium subscription.
Okay, so that explains why it would have access to that music or all that music. So that's
yes.
Good. Okay, good. Hey, that's fine. That just makes the experience for you all the more robust.
It really does.
So Kelly, you jumped in with a recommendation, and when Neil posted this question, what was yours and why?
Yeah, I was the bummer in this. A thing that I think doesn't always get the attention it deserves, regardless of the conclusion that you come to at the end of it, is what companies are doing with the information people give them. And so one thing that is important to me is what happens with that. So after Neil posted this, one of the things I pointed out was Google wants you to use Google for stuff as much as you can, because you're not Google's customer. Google's customer is whoever's generating profiles, mining the data that Google can give them. Because Google's only sort of a search company, they're really a data company. And so they give, they can give companies who wish to pay, which is why single users get everything from Google for free. There are companies who pay for how many women in the United States listen to this music, how many men in the United States, how many men on the West Coast of the United States do this thing, whatever it is. So, or search for this or whatever. And so lots of companies are using that data. And so Google is more than happy to hand over whatever information they have about me. And so I try not to give them as much information as I can. So, and particularly in light of all of the data breaching that we've seen lately, and like with the Yahoo hack and everything else. So one of the things I pointed out was, who has your data and what they're doing with it. And like, it's in Amazon's best interest to make sure that whatever data they have on me is protected, because if people can get into my Amazon account repeatedly, I'm going to stop buying stuff from Amazon. And when I stop being Amazon's customer, like, I don't buy a truckload of stuff from Amazon, but I buy a lot of stuff from Amazon, and it's going to, if that happens to enough people enough times, people are going to stop being customers. So Amazon thinks a lot about security. I'm not sure in some other Internet of Things situations that other people do, which is part of what I talked about with you, Chuck, when we did the questions. Not everybody thinks that stuff through. So one of the things I said was, at my house, we had a very similar conversation to what Neil had. I told my husband that the Amazon Echo was on sale last year at one point at Best Buy. And he said, "Okay, why would I want one?" And I said, "Well, I know you are kind of interested in a voice assistant." And he said, "Yeah." And then he said a sentence he doesn't say very often. He said, "I want the app. Why wouldn't I buy the Apple one?" And I said, "There isn't one. Like, you've already got it. You have an iPhone 6. You have, and he's like, "Yeah, but she doesn't run everything." And I'm like, "Yeah, and I'm not sure she's ever going to." So, this may be a way to do that. So he kind of thought about it, and I'm like, they'll let you take it back in 2 weeks if you hate it. So he plugged it in and he set it up, and now we have 2 more because we have 3 levels of our house. And so we have little dot outposts, one on the main floor and one upstairs for the bedrooms. And because I don't know that Apple's ever going to get into that space. And like I said, we sort of went through what the data collection looked like, and it seemed like Amazon's, I didn't read them end to end. I went and found summaries of what the T&Cs were like for these devices, and it seemed like the Amazon one was more amenable to me for something that I basically most of the time wanted to use to turn on lights, adjust the thermostat, things like that. So
Kelly, please bring me back to the discussion of who the customer is, because I want to get back to that. But I want to go back to Neil, because Neil eventually took the input of you 2 ladies along with some other folks that threw some comments in and made a decision. And that decision was the Amazon Echo.
I think you can say Echo as long as you don't say the A word, which is her name.
Yeah, most people. People have the word set up as a word.
Well, I have 2 of them, and I have them configured differently. And if I use the E word, one will answer. If I use the A word, the other will answer. So that's why I'm being careful here.
Well, let's just call them units. I always try to refer to them as the Amazon unit
the Amazon
or the Google unit.
We go.
There you go.
Sounds good.
That works.
Good Star Trek reference. Yes.
I think both comments are fantastic. I mean, Allison's hit on why I was even considering the Google device, because I felt that Google would provide the kind of information that might be better. That's Google's business, right? That's what they do a good job at. Mm-hmm. And so I thought, wow, maybe that might be the better device for her, because she's going to be asking more generic questions. She's not going to be using it, at least I hope not, to be ordering things from Amazon. But otherwise we could get into a lot of trouble. But so I mean, Allison makes a great point, and that was one of the reasons why I wanted to seriously consider the Google device. But then Kelly makes a great point as well. Who's using that data, and what are they using it for, and where is it going? So it was a very difficult decision, but where I finally came down was that I am currently an Amazon Prime customer, and so therefore I have access to all of Amazon Prime Music. And I know this is going to be a device that my mom will likely be using to play music, which is why I didn't go with the Dot and I went with the full-size model, because of the speaker system I felt would be better with this than with the Dot. And so I figured, well, if she has access to music, it'll play through this, and she'll actually have access to that music, where I'm not a Google Play subscriber, and I don't plan on doing it just for that device. So that's kind of where I came down and figured that this would be a better device because it uses a service I already have. Now, if Google offered Apple Music integration, then I might have gone the other way. I don't know.
So it's interesting that one of the key things that Kelly sees as the Amazon unit's reason for being is the very thing that you would prefer your mother probably not use.
Yeah, because well, otherwise who knows what packages will be showing up all the time. But I don't know, maybe actually, I mean, well, she needs to get out of the house and do her shopping stuff anyway, so I don't want her to actually get into the habit. I would like to not see her get into the habit of, oh, I can just order my whatever from Amazon and not have to get out of the house and go drive to the store and go buy something she needs to. She's retired, so it's good for her to actually get out of the house and do those things. So I really don't want her to use it to order things. Although I was thinking the other night that if I bought one of, and this will get into Kelly's Internet of Things question, but if I bought her like a Switch that would work with it, that, because I was telling her this the other night, I'm like, hey mom, you could say, hey, you know who, turn off my lights, and that could possibly work. So for her, this might actually be something that might become more useful the more she experiences and the capabilities of it.
And that is one thing I've liked about the Amazon unit, is that the skills for it are really flexible. It's kind of at a point for me personally, because I don't want to spend a bunch of time browsing for stuff I can add on, extensions for it, where it's kind of hard, like, unless I hear from somebody or I read an article about, like, here's a cool thing you can do with your Amazon unit. For the most part, but what I did was I looked specifically for stuff I had in my house. So I have some WeMo switches. So I went to the skills page and I searched for WeMo, and I went to the skills page and I searched for Hue, and searched for Ecobee, because those are things I have in my house, and I wanted to see if I could do that. And I think one of the things that I have enjoyed about it, I haven't seen a lot about the Google Home skills, but one of the things that I have enjoyed about the Amazon one is poking around a little bit and finding what people have created that make it so that they can boss stuff around with the Echo. And in fact, part of I actually have an additional dot that is yet to be activated that I'm going to try. I have to try to sort out the Wi-Fi situation, but my grandmother-in-law is in assisted living and in a memory care facility, and I thought, how great would it be if she could ask somebody what time it is, what day it is, 100 times, and it never gets mad at her, and it never gets snippy. And then I found out that if you're an AT&T customer, this is something that people can find out. If you are an AT&T customer, there is a skill you can set up for the Amazon unit that will allow it to text people, and then you can set up specific phone numbers with names, and you can tell your Echo, sorry, Chuck, you can tell your Amazon unit to text somebody something, and then it will send a text message to that person. So because I am an AT&T customer, I set it up with her kids, and then her grandkids who are local. And so the account, I set up the skill so that all of that's ready to go. So once I can confirm what her Wi-Fi situation is, I'm going to be able to set this up and give her an index card. She writes everything on index cards, so I'm going to write her an index card with the stuff that she's probably going to want to ask it. What's the day today? What's the time right now? And I'm trying to actually I'm trying to get in touch with someone at the facility where she lives and find out if I can put the calendar in there so that she can see. So she can ask, like, what's on my calendar today, and find out, like, if today they're playing cribbage or Keno or what, and find out, or canasta, that's the one she likes to play, and find out, like, is it canasta day today or is it cribbage day today? And no matter how many times she asks, it's never going to get crappy with her. And I went and did a tiny, tiny bit of research and found so many people who are doing this. And, like, there's a guy who set up a website and said, I'm suffering from early stage dementia. And so I write on my blog on days when I'm in, and everybody wants me to pimp their product, and I won't ever do it. And I'm here to tell you guys how awesome the Echo is. It saved my marriage because I can ask her 100 times a day what day it is. And my wife doesn't, and I'm not asking my wife anymore. And I don't have to ask my wife, what time is it? It's 5:01. What time is it? It's 5:02. What time is it? Are you kidding me? And he, like, put this together and said, this is a thing that's helping me personally. And I thought, well, that's fantastic. Of course I want to do this. Yeah. And we have an Amazon pop-up store here in town. So I went and bought one, and I figured, I'm out $40, and, like, she may end up with something that makes her life immeasurably better, because she is by herself in her apartment, and so she doesn't have anyone else to talk to unless someone's visiting her, or something like that. So once I get the Wi-Fi sorted out, I'm gonna put this together, and hopefully something great will come out of it. So
hey.
This edition of MacVoices is supported by Blue Apron, the #1 fresh ingredient and recipe delivery service in the country. Blue Apron's mission is to make home cooking more accessible to everyone, regardless of your location or experience, while supporting a more sustainable food system. Blue Apron delivers high-quality meats and produce by partnering with over 150 local farms, fisheries, and ranchers across the United States. Produce is sourced from farms that practice regenerative techniques. Beef, chicken, and pork come from responsibly raised animals. And seafood is sourced sustainably. That's their way of making sure they can deliver the best ingredients now and for a long time to come. Blue Apron is not only available to 99% of the continental United States, but also to 99.5% of the so-called food deserts, making Blue Apron a terrific option for everyone, including those for whom a trip to the grocery store is an all-day event. If all that sounds expensive, it's not. Blue Apron meals start at under $10 per person, making them seriously competitive with your local restaurant. And by cooking at home, you get the fun and benefit of cooking with your family. By signing up for Blue Apron, you could be enjoying meals such as shiitake mushroom burgers with miso mayonnaise and roasted sweet potato, seared chicken and French lentils, or Southern Italian cod stew with arugula and feta salad with pizza bianca. Sound good? I can make it sound even better, because you get your first 3 meals delivered right to your door for free with free shipping by visiting blueapron.com/MacVoices and signing up to try Blue Apron. Your first meals will be arriving shortly, so you need to get ready. All that means is that you need to plan to eat at home when the Blue Apron box arrives, since Blue Apron gives you everything you need for all their delicious recipes. No last-minute trips to the grocery store or ingredients for you to have on hand. If you haven't tried Blue Apron yet, you're missing out. But you don't have to. BlueApron.com/MacVoices gets you 3 free meals with free shipping to try them out. Do it today, eat well this week. Blue Apron, a better way to cook. Thanks to Blue Apron for their support of MacVoices.
Kelly, I wanted to ask you, I don't want to go down, direct things down a rabbit hole too far, but I'm curious, you mentioned the texting ability. Will it read text back? So if a text comes in, if you text, can you text the Echo back?
That I do not know. I did not try. Okay. I was just using my husband as a test, and I think it says the text comes from me because I had to hook it up to my AT&T account. Okay. So he was sort of confused, I didn't use his phone. I was texting my father-in-law. So he's like, so he gets like 3 messages in a row that say, this is a test, or will you call me if you get this message? And he's like, what is happening? Like, it says it's you, but I don't know if it's you. What's going on? And so I'm like, here's the deal. I got this thing for your mom and I wanted to see if it works. And she can text people. And the thing that's funny is that she had a cell phone and she got rid of it because it was too complicated. And so like my in-laws are all like, she thought a cell phone was hard and you're going to give her one of these? And I'm like, this is so much easier than those things. She already knows how to talk to people. All she has to do is ask a question. Right. Like, yeah. So we'll see what happens. I'm expressing my love through nerdery. This is a thing I can try and do and see what happens. And we'll find out how well it goes. So,
well, Kelly, it's a great idea. It sounds like some science fiction movies and series we've all seen that that the robots are going to end up being the caretakers for much the reason that you're describing the Echo. But at the very least, I mean, it's got to make that it's got to make those folks feel better. And you're right, it never gets tired. So great. Allison, have you done any research? I really don't know how much Google Home has in the way of Internet of Things controls yet. I mean, Alexa was the first. Alexa was the first one out of the box, and so that's the one that so many people seem to have gravitated toward, at least to get started. But I would think Google would have the wherewithal to have made this kind of robust.
Yeah, according to a presentation that I went to, which was kind of my impetus for getting the Google Home, it does have Internet of Things control. For me, living in a rental, I'm pretty limited in terms of what I can get. But with both of us being blind, the one thing I really do want to invest in is a Hue hub and replace our light bulbs with Hue bulbs, because
yes,
if I've told people once, I've told them 1,000 times, please turn the lights off when you leave. Please turn the lights off when you leave. And then 3 days later, we realize the light switch is up and the lights have been on this whole time. So I am in the process of figuring out our Hue situation and how that's going to work.
It's awesome. if it's anything like the Amazon unit, the experience with the Amazon unit, setting the lights up themselves is really straightforward. I had Hue lights for a long time before I got any sort of voice control assistant. And setting up the lights is relatively easy. And then I was telling somebody the other day, it's like the most exciting, boring review I can give you. Like every time I tell my thing to turn the lights on or turn the lights off, it just does.
See, that's awesome.
And
that's exactly what I need.
And the best thing about it is that it is natural expression. So you just tell it, turn off all the lights, and all the lights turn off. And it's awesome. It's super, super great.
And from what I gather, it's very simple where you just install the hub and then you just replace your light bulbs, right?
Basically,
in your house.
yes.
Awesome.
Yeah, there's an ounce of configuration you have to go through to get the hub itself on Wi-Fi.
Okay.
But then you can also control it using Siri. So you do have that option. If you get the plain white bulbs, you can tell it, you can turn them on and turn them off and specify a percentage on the Amazon side and on the Siri side.
Okay.
If you have the color bulbs, you can tell Siri to turn them a color. I don't know what the Google controls are like. The Amazon controls need some jiggery pokery to change some colors, but otherwise you can turn them on and off. And the other thing that's great about the Hue lights, part of what I liked when I got into them, was I don't always know how long I'm going to be gone, and so I want to have a light on when I get home, and I don't always want to turn it on at 2 p.m, in case. So so I set up a rule that like when I come home, the light turns on, and so I never have to walk into a dark house.
Nice.
Like it's one tiny little thing that just makes me really happy with the Hue lights. That's really straightforward. So yeah.
Allison, also, do you have any strong feelings at this point for HomeKit compatibility? Or being an Apple person, I would think that might have figured a little bit into the decision to get the Google Home.
You know, I want whatever items I get in terms of Internet of Things to be HomeKit compatible if they can be. But unfortunately, I'm hearing a lot of mixed reviews of Siri and HomeKit and everything in terms of how consistently it's like it is with Siri all the time. It doesn't always work consistently. So if I can get it to work consistently on the Amazon or the Google Home, that'll be great. But I would love, being a primarily Apple person living 98% of my time in that ecosystem, it would be great if it was HomeKit compatible too, which it sounds like these Hue lights will be. So
yeah, they totally are. It's really nice.
Awesome. Okay. That's really good.
Neil, do you have any aspirations for adding more things for your mother? And by that I mean Internet Internet of Things devices like lights or whatever, or is this primarily just to answer her questions and do what you've originally purchased it for?
Sure. I think right now the idea is to just go in small and get it to do what she wants to do. And then if I can expand on that using some lights, her house is an older home, so adding lights to it or switches to automatically turn on and off lights, I think would be a great feature to give and to let her use. I'm really excited about the AT&T texting thing. I'm an AT&T customer, so Kelly, you got to keep me informed on how that's going for you. Okay. Because if, as I mentioned at the top of the show, she doesn't have a cell phone, and so if she has the ability to send us a quick text, or if we could even text her back and have the Amazon device read it back to her, it would be so much easier to stay in touch instead of having, one of the downsides of all this new technology is that it used to be we would call somebody and you'd sit and talk for a little while. And with everything being so busy, I have 2 younger kids, and so their schedules, our schedules, it's very busy. And I don't think that's anything new to most of your listeners, that that's the way things are right now. And so using texting is very simple and easy way to get across very quick communication without having to go through a long or drawn out telephone conversation. And then you kind of feel weird if you just have a short telephone conversation to say one thing and then it's like, okay, goodbye. It just, that's not the way I grew up. So it feels very weird to me. Yeah. And so one of the problems that we have with my mom right now is staying in touch with her, because every time you feel like you call, it's like, okay, you got to talk for a little while and you go on and on. It feels awkward to cut it short, I guess. And so if we had that ability to send text back and forth, that would be very interesting. And then she could even text my kids and check in on them individually, which right now she can't do. They don't have telephone numbers yet. That's coming soon, I think. But if they're on Wi-Fi, they can text. So there's those abilities.
Another thing with the switches that I saw somebody when I was looking at like people who basically bought an Amazon unit for their parents, whether they were living in assisted living or just on their own someplace else, was I saw one person who said, I bought one and it's on my Amazon account and I gave it to my mom. And when my mom gets up in the morning, she tells the unit to turn on the kitchen light. And then when the kids come downstairs for breakfast, that's their signal that grandma is thinking about them.
Oh, wow.
Oh,
so like even tiny little stuff like that, like, or use, so, Neil, you may want to get like a 2-pack of WeMo switches and then have one at your house too. And then she can turn a light on. And like, that means she's thinking of you, or give me a call, or, whatever, like have some sort of established communication that way too.
Yeah, one of the things, I'm glad you brought that up, Kelly, because one of the issues that I have with many of the lights specifically is that my house is, I think, about 8 years old after I rebuilt it. And so all of my lights in my house are plug-in type. They're not traditional screw-in type bulbs.
Oh.
And so one of the problems with the Internet of Things as far as it goes, as far as lighting goes, is nobody is making those types of bulbs for those types of sockets. And so even if I wanted to put in those types of lights in my house, I can't, because I have all of my lights are built in. I don't have any like freestanding table lamps. I do it at my nightstand, but for the general lighting of the house, it's all through can lights up in the ceiling. And none of the Internet of Things lights work with those types of plugs. And so I'm kind of in a point where I'd really like to do some things like that, but I don't really have that ability. Now, I could probably replace some of the switches that operate those lights, but I have a lot of switches around this house, and it's just cost prohibitive right now.
And everything has 2 switches, and if one's up and one's down, and that's weird. And I totally hear you. We have the same problem here. There's a lot of switches.
Neil, you may want to do a little bit of research. I would swear that there was something that, now I don't know if you'd be able to fit them into the can, depending on how big your can is, but I'd swear that there's something. It may not be one of the major manufacturers, but I'd swear there was somebody that had something like that built into a bulb, so that there was, a piece that is about that big, between where it screws in and the bulb itself. So I think somebody makes something, but I don't hold me to it.
There may be some options out there, but I haven't dug into it enough, mainly because I keep hearing Kelly on different podcasts talking about all the issues sometimes she has, and others talking about some of the problems. I know Jeff Gamet on his Daily Observations podcast talks often about issues that he's having getting things to work right. And quite honestly, Chuck, I don't have time for that. I need it to work. I want it to work. I don't want to come home and hassle with troubleshooting my lights for an afternoon.
Yeah, I agree completely with that, because this is some of this stuff is fun to play with, but I'm like you. At the end of the day, when I come home, and if I'm dependent on these things, I really want them to just work. I don't want to have to do a lot of troubleshooting, which is probably why I haven't spent a lot of money at this point on some of these things, because it's at some point it's just easier for me to go over and flip the light switch on and know it's going to work, as opposed to sit here and yelling at one device or another to turn the lights on or turn the lights off. So,
well,
yes.
Ironically enough, when I built my house about 8 years ago, there's and I'm forgetting the name of it now, and I'll probably remember it after the show, but the lighting devices that are switching, the Lutron.
Yeah.
Yes.
They made, it's called a graphic eye is what it was called at the time, and I don't know if they still make it, but it has an infrared receiver on it. So it's positioned in a spot in my great room, essentially, which is like a combination of my kitchen and my living room are all in one space. And I have about 6 different lighting zones in that space, and they can be controlled all through this graphic eye through an infrared receiver. So I literally have my I have a Logitech Harmony 1 remote control, and the lighting controls are built. I downloaded the right stuff to put in there, and so literally I can go to my lighting control and turn on all of the lights. I can turn each zone on individually, and so I can do that all from my couch.
Nice.
Wow.
Allison, I think you said you had a gadget addiction. You're among
I
friends
do.
here. You're among friends.
I'm so glad.
Yeah.
We are your people.
Yeah.
Actually, that's one of the things I like about the WeMo. Usually my complaint, for people who aren't familiar with listening to me rant about the stuff in my house, what I run with my phone, is that most of it doesn't work in conjunction with each other. So if I tell my voice assistant to turn off all the lights, it really only means the hue lights. I do have a light that's plugged into a WeMo switch, and it doesn't affect that one. And if I tell it, like the stuff that we see in the Apple demo, like when Tim Cook talks about, like, he tells his phone good morning and like all this stuff happens, like, that's not my house. I want it to be my house, but that's not my house.
Kelly,
And,
I think we all want it to be our house.
Yeah.
Yeah, but it's because I can't find a way to string all that stuff together to make, the light come on. And like, I have a rule set up for a light bulb that fades in to a certain percentage for like 15 minutes in the morning, so that it's a little less obnoxious to wake up than an alarm. So I have that set up. And I have one of the WeMos I have is for the water boiler in the kitchen. So I can turn that on like when I first wake up, and by the time I go downstairs, like the water's hot and I can have tea or I can make coffee or whatever I want to do. But like none of that stuff works together. I don't have the one unit to rule them all yet. Mm-hmm. And that's the thing that I'm always struggling with, because I have loads and loads of different kinds of things. I have lights that go around the landscaping at my house. I have lights inside. I have a sprinkler system, a thermostat, some hue lights. I have some WeMo switches. So I have a wide variety of stuff, and I want to be able to control it all in one place, and that doesn't exist right now. And that's the thing that makes me frustrated. But if you're somebody who has no allegiance to any of these things right now, has not set any of this stuff up, and you want to go and you want to try it out, like I told Chuck on 5 questions, the WeMo switch is the way to go, because you don't have to get another thing that you plug in the closet and have to set up on your Wi-Fi or whatever. You configure it, and it's literally just a thing that you plug into the outlet, and then it's its own outlet, and you plug your lamp or your hot water boiler or whatever into that, and then you're done. And that's all you have to do. So it's pretty low configuration, and then you can just run with it, and it works really well with, I believe it works with the Google Home. I want to say I saw that from Belkin not too long ago. Belkin makes the WeMo switch, and I know it works with the Amazon unit, and I know that Siri can boss it around as well.
Interesting. Now going back to the hue lights for just a minute, can you ask it what lights are on and have it tell you if you're not sure?
I've never tried that. So I don't know.
Test on Saturday, Kelly.
Yeah, I'm like, hold on, let me go open the door and ask her because it's right there, and I'll just lean out and say, hey, and see what she tells me. Yeah. I have not tried that. I have sort of reset everything, like if I don't know what's on, and just told it to turn everything off and then asked her to turn on the one I want or the two that I want. So I have done that. And
that by itself is so much more control than I have right now that would be beautiful. So
yeah, and the best thing about it is that you can set up groups, so you can actually say stuff that sounds like English. So like my parents were visiting, and I was telling them, like, if you want to turn on the lights to watch TV, you have to ask this thing on the end of the bar. So here's how you do it. And so I said, you have to tell it, turn on the family room lights, with her name at the beginning. And, like I told them once and they were done. Like they totally got it. And so that was pretty, like, for me, that was a pretty validating experience. Like, obviously this is something that people who aren't, Kelly, who troubleshoots networks in her free time, are totally going to be able to get into. So that was the thing that I thought was nice about it, was you can group lights into rooms and then tell it what you want to do.
Cool.
So I have a question for everybody, if I can jump in and ask this, Chuck.
Sure.
What in the hell is up with Apple on this? Why is Apple not playing in this space? I mean, maybe they don't feel that it's worth it. But what I'm finding, Chuck, and the reason I kind of want to ask this is because I know a number of people who I don't consider very tech savvy or really into tech. They have these things. They're using them in their homes. These are people I'm like, what? You have one of those? Why do you? It seems maybe, I guess what I'm getting at is that it seems like this sort of technology that is going to sit in a room. Now, granted, I think Apple's kind of come out and said, well, you're carrying that device around with you all the time, and we feel that's better. To me, I think that's an excuse. But it seems like it's hitting the mainstream. And my concern really is that, at least after hearing some of the reports from CES, that this is really taking off, and everybody is building around the Amazon ecosystem and possibly the Google Home ecosystem that is starting. And it seems like Apple's just not going to play in this field. And are they missing out on something? And why are they not in this field?
Okay, so I'll take a shot at it. And I don't want to, I can be accused of being an Apple apologist. I think there is something to be said for the approach that they're taking now, because yes, I have this in my pocket, obviously my iPhone, but I also have my Apple Watch on my wrist, and in a lot of cases, the experience with with Siri on my wrist is actually better than my iPhone. Because I can put my watch right up to my mouth and say, "Hey Siri," and she just responded. Now actually my phone did too, but it's a quiet environment right now. So I think there's something to be said for the privacy. I think there are issues over security. One thing the Amazon units do very well, because of the multiple microphones in them, they seem to be able to pick things up, sometimes even when I don't want them to. If my current Amazon unit is probably 8 to 10 feet that direction, and if I say her name. She will appear. And even though I don't want her to. And so, I have to wonder if that's not a good reason for Apple not to be doing it. Or I know Brian Chaffin has addressed this several times on the Mac Observer podcasts, that we're being trained. We are being trained by these units as opposed to the units taking us as we are. We have to get the syntax right. And his opinion is that, or what he hopes, I think, is happening, and I'm speaking for Brian, which is kind of unusual, is that when Apple does come out with something, if and when it does, it's going to be a lot friendlier. It's going to be we don't have to worry about the syntax nearly as much, that it will be able to respond a lot more in normal language. So, other than that, I'm kind of with you, Neil. I wish they were playing in this space. I look forward to the time that they are. But for right now, I find the Siri experience, especially with the devices I have, pretty good. So I don't know.
It seems like Apple's not playing in a lot of spaces right now. We haven't had a new Mac Pro in years. We haven't had a new iMac in years now. And so who knows what Apple's really doing right now.
As a fairly new Apple person, it is getting a little bit worrisome. I've only really been playing significantly in the Apple ecosystem since really 2010 to 2012 is when I kind of really jumped in. In 2013, I switched from Windows. So I'm getting a little nervous as someone who is putting a lot of my eggs in the Apple basket, as it were. I would like to see them have an Amazon unit type device. I don't think it's entirely necessary because now I've got the watch and the phone and the Mac with Siri on it. But I want the experience of using Siri to be more robust. I want it to be as natural as it seems to be on especially the Google device and to some extent on the Amazon device. I'm hoping that Apple, since they've purchased these some sort of natural language firm I read somewhere, that will help. But right now, they are in grave danger, I think, of being left in the dust, at least in terms of this particular market, if they're not careful and if they don't take it a little bit more seriously, because this is what people want.
And Allison, the only thing I would throw in there is that Apple has created some markets in some places. Apple has jumped into markets later with a much better experience in some cases. And I'd like to think that maybe the latter is going to be what happens with things like these home control units.
I really hope so.
Yeah,
I
do too. I'm rooting for them, but at the same time, if you need it now, Apple introducing a device 6 or 8 months from now is not going to help. So you do the best you can with what you got.
Well,
yeah.
Chuck, one of your arguments was, I have my phone. Allison said, I have my Mac. You said you have your watch. I've got one too. The problem is my mom doesn't.
Yep.
She's not going to have a computer. She's not going to have a cell phone.
Yeah.
And so she needs some other device. And clearly, as Kelly illustrated earlier in the podcast, there are other people out there that are not going to have those devices. That is part of your argument about maybe why Apple's not in this space. They're not going to have those devices. They're looking for another device. And maybe the market's not big enough for Apple to get interested on that, for that sort of niche where it's people that don't have these other devices. But I feel that there's a market there, and I'm concerned too, as Allison said, are they going to get Apple left in the dust? Apple traditionally doesn't play well with others, and this seems like a market that is going to be full of others. And as we're seeing with HomeKit, I understand the difficulties of working with HomeKit due to the security, but yet there's a whole lot of things happening. And Kelly, as you mentioned earlier, they don't talk to each other. That's part of, so not only do I have an issue with the light bulbs in my house, but I'm also kind of sitting on the sides. And I think Kelly, you've mentioned this on other shows, or Chuck, I think maybe Brian and you talked about it before, but I'm actually that person who's sitting on the sidelines going, take my money, but give me something that will work with everything else and will work. And it's not here yet. And maybe because we're too early in the process. I don't know.
But we're not. And this is the thing that frustrates me to no end about this, because Apple already made the thing. Remember I mentioned earlier, I'm really tired of having to buy a new Internet of Things or a home automation device because they're different. I'm tired of buying one of those and having it come with a little box that I have to go plug into an Ethernet jack somewhere or hook up to the Wi-Fi somewhere, because all of them have their own majigger that I have to go and find a place for. And like this closet that's behind me is all technology. It honestly, like the TiVo lives in there and the receiver lives in there and all these other things. And there's this little row of boxes that are all stuff that I had to plug in because they're all hubs for whatever it is that those things control. One of those things is an Apple TV. 2 years ago or more, I wrote this what for me is an exceedingly logical piece at Mac Observer about how Apple already gave me the thing that I plugged in and put in my closet that I could use to be doing this stuff. and it's the Apple TV. And then they came out with the new version of the Apple TV, and the new version of the Apple TV has the voice remote, and you can ask it all kinds of stuff. What if you could ask it stuff without having to pick it up? What if, for example, Neil, if your mom had an Apple TV connected and hooked up and the remote was just sitting on the end table and she could ask it stuff and it could answer her through the Apple TV? Or when I say stuff to my phone and I go, hey, turn on these lights or good morning or whatever, my phone goes, hey, Apple TV, here's the 5 things that need to happen because Kelly just said good morning or good night or whatever. Why can't that happen? And that was one of the things that I was so excited about when people started going, you know, I heard there's going to be a new Apple TV, and here, you know, maybe you can get your hands on a developer unit. And I got one, and I was so excited, and I cracked it open, and I hooked it all up, and I got it on the App Store, and I was looking around at all the stuff, and I started asking it things, and, you know, could it turn on the lights, and can it do this, and it couldn't do anything. And like I said at the top of the show, we had the same problem at my house where my husband said, when is there going to be an Apple Echo? And I'm like, that's not a thing. And honestly, at this point, I'm not sure it's ever going to be. And the thing, aside from your mom, Neil, who's absolutely a lovely person, I am certain, because she's your mom.
Of course.
The thing that's really frustrating for most people is, like, I have a phone which will interact with an Apple TV. I have a watch which will interact with an Apple TV. I have all these things that could be talking to the Apple TV, and then the Apple TV says, okay, I got a good morning, turn on the coffee maker, turn on these lights, you know, do this, and then feed the news briefing back or whatever. And the Apple TV could do that. It's called a resident device. And I know that the reason that your phone or your watch or your iPad or whatever doesn't do that work for you is because it can come and go from the network on a regular basis. And most Apple TVs don't. And I pled my case, and I really wanted it to be. And there were a number of people in the comments that were saying things like, you know, I wasn't sure about this, but yeah, now I'm convinced. Like, what's your problem, Apple? And the thing that I find the most interesting about this is that Apple was first with the voice stuff. Like, on the iPhone, no one else had a voice assistant before Apple did. And then Google got one for Android, et cetera, et cetera. And the reason that I get so frustrated is because Apple was the one back in the day on System 7, on System 8, on Mac OS 9, that recognized they weren't the only game in town. And so if you had a floppy disk, gather around, kids, grandma's telling a story. If you had a floppy disk and that was Windows formatted, and you put it in your Mac would go, here are the files on that disk. Or you could read the contents of a Windows hard drive, or you could open a file that came from Windows, and Windows never had that. And so that was one of the things I always thought was great about Apple, was like Apple recognized they weren't the only computer in the world. And I feel like that's somehow been lost along the way. And that's the part to me that's so frustrating about this, is that I really want it to happen. I've begged for it to happen publicly, repeatedly, loudly, and have all these reasons why it could happen and why it should happen, and nothing happens. And it's the same sort of thing as like the Mac Pro, you know, it's just silence. And like, you know, when they still said, oh, Apple TV is just a hobby, that was great. But, you know, and then they were like, yeah, guess what? Now with version 4, we take it seriously. Like, it's made an actual billion with a B number of dollars. So we probably ought to look at it like it's legit. And I want them to do that with these other things, and it's just not happening. So I'm trying to figure out, like you, Neil, what they are doing that's going to come out and be amazing. Like, I know the watch. That was a new thing. That's something that's still maturing and growing and turning into something that people are using. But I haven't seen much since, because most of what came before and most of what came after that, by about 2 years on either side, has been variations on a theme. And so if they're not working on, you know, a car or whatever, then what are they working on? Because lots of people go into infinite loop every day and come out of infinite loop every day, and they're doing something. Mm-hmm. So what?
Okay, exactly. Grandma Kelly. This is one of the things that bothers me about what we all do. We all imprint what we want and what we think on what they are doing. All right, the Apple TV, you know, TV. All right, mm-hmm. It's supposed to be a video consumption device. It's not an Apple hub. It's not an Apple an Apple Internet of Things device. It's an Apple TV.
Yes.
I'm with you. I think there are a lot of compelling reasons it could be, but on the other hand, I'm not sure that where I place an Apple TV, because an Apple TV has this funny thing, it has to connect into my screen. I'm not sure that would be the optimum place to have something like this. So, you know, that in my case, mine's sitting on a shelf right under my TV. So, you know, I'm not sure that's the best place to do it. But I also know there are a lot of us that would like to see Apple reinvent a lot of things, from the airline reservation systems right on down.
Well,
You know,
Chuck,
so
I think that you're right. The Apple TV is an Apple TV, but I think what you're hearing, at least from where the conversation's gone, is that we want Apple to be in some of these spaces. We would like them to solve some problems, which is what they're good at. And I guess we're frustrated. At least I'm frustrated. I shouldn't speak for everybody, but I'm frustrated that Apple's not not spending their billions and billions and billions of dollars and into solving some of these issues. And I think we're frustrated because, as Brian Chaffin has said, they released 14 products last year. What the hell are they doing?
Neil, I'm frustrated with you as well. I guess and first of all, I will always argue the other side, just to upset people. But part of me says that, you know, just because you want it and I want it. I mean, I can think of probably 10 products I've bought in the last 6 months that really don't have anything to do with anything Apple does. But boy, wouldn't it be great if Apple did this? I mean, sure. I had a need to send to connect a wireless video signal to a remote TV where I didn't have any cable jacks or outlets. So I went to a third party. I found something that worked great. Would I have liked to have had an Apple product that did that? Absolutely, because I think it would have been done better than this device. But this device got the job done, and so, you know, that's it.
Sure.
I hear what you're saying, and believe me, I'm with you. I get it.
They can't be involved and they can't do everything, but some of the things that they have done, like producing really great looking monitors, producing wireless base stations and time capsules, they've done those things and now they're abandoning those. I am so frustrated in that. I really want it's take my money, Apple. I will buy your monitor. I will spend more money to buy your monitor because I want that look on my desk. And that's what I want to look at. I don't want to look at some cheap LG plastic thing that's sitting on my desk. If I cared about that, or if I didn't care about that, then I'd go buy the $300 Dell 4K display, right? I don't have to spend the $1,000 to buy the Apple one that, of course, doesn't exist, or the LG one. So that, I think we're frustrated, Chuck, is that Apple, even in the areas that they've excelled in and have done, they're abandoning. And I think as Mac users, at least me personally, I'm getting very frustrated.
I'm right there with you.
That's what it is their history of stuff that they have done, and then just sort of let Mike Rose and I, when we used to show, it's just on a hiatus right now, but benevolent neglect is the phrase that he used to use for that sort of thing. And like Time Capsule was amazing because it brought backup to the masses, because everybody needs to be backing up their data, and this was like the fastest, easiest, coolest way. You know, it looked really neat, and it was just a little thing in your menu bar, and it was like, it's cool, I got you. And that was it. And that was all you had to do. And I don't need Apple to solve all the problems in the world. I do not expect them to make TSA lines faster. I don't expect them to make the car look nicer. I don't expect them to make it so that there's less heat loss out of this window over here. Like, I don't expect them to solve all the problems. But technological problems that they have proven to be interested in the past, you know, like they gave us HomeKit, like, what's the evolution of that? Because so far it hasn't really been anything. And like, you know, they gave us time capsules and time machine, and like, where's the evolution of that? And, you know, Neil, like you're talking about, you know, I want to see more interesting stuff coming out of there, because yeah, they've released a lot of stuff, but like I said, it's variations on a theme, and I'm trying to figure out where all of those smarty pants people they hired and all of those awesome companies they bought, what the output is from all of that, because it's not a new Mac Pro, it's not new stuff for the Apple TV, it's not HomeKit, it's not screens, big, beautiful acres of screen that are just so pretty, and that IPS with the silver and the so pretty. And where are they? Like, you know, if I had one, I wouldn't be able to see it over the pile of money I saved by buying an IPS monitor that doesn't have an Apple logo on the back. So it's frustrating as a person, and I understand that just because they didn't make something for me doesn't mean it's not for everybody. Like, I don't have a touch bar machine. I don't see a place for it in my life. That doesn't mean I don't see the value of it for other people. And it's just that I'm not seeing things like that on a larger scale, you know, the kind of stuff that is in fact problems that they used to try to take a crack at. And the problem they're going to have here is inertia. Like, I already have an Echo. Like, that's going to, you know, tie me to Prime for however long so that it continues to be useful. Allison has a Google Home, which is going to tie her to Google, to the Google ecosystem for different stuff. And, you know, and I know, you know, years ago, everybody said, why would I sign up for Facebook? I have a MySpace page, and look where we are now. But I'm really having a hard time finding the way that Apple's going to enter this market and do something that is going to make people either start down the road with Apple from the beginning or switch from something like Allison and I, and soon to be Neil, already have.
And I feel like Apple is the company that pioneered taking a flat piece of glass that a blind person by all rights could never have used 10 years ago, and made it so that every blind person I know, practically, including myself, has a flat piece of glass in their hand 23 hours out of the day and can use to live your entire life. Why is this so hard, Apple? That's what frustrates the hell out of me.
All right, I hope somebody at Apple's listening to this, because we've got 4 frustrated people. So this is a product we really want, and I don't think there's any question about it. And I just what I deeply hope, and I'll try to end this on a high note. What I really hope is that Apple is working on something that will come out and be so much better than all these devices. Because let's face it, as great as the Google Home is for Allison, as great as whoops, I almost said her name. The Amazon unit is for Kelly, hopefully for Neil and his mom, and for me to maybe a lesser degree. There's still a bit of geekiness involved in setting these things up and getting them to work. And so what I really hope is that Apple will come out with something that is super easy to use, that does just work, and then can be added to in a reasonably easy way. We'll see. We'll see. Well, and if we get it, I will have everybody here back.
We'll find out by March of 28. Yeah, I was going to say, we'll reconvene in March of 2018.
All right.
I'll put it on the calendar.
And yell at more clouds.
Yeah, by then we'll have some, you know, who knows what its name will be, but, you know, there'll probably be somebody else here. Guys, thank you. This has been interesting and enlightening, I think. And Neil, thank you for asking the question in the group. And to Kelly and Allison for answering from 2 different perspectives. That's kind of what it's all about, is sharing information. So with that, let's go around the room, let folks know where they can find you when you're not here serving on the Mac Jury. And this time I'll go in reverse order. Neil, how about you first?
Sure. So the best place to probably find me is on Twitter, and my Twitter handle is NPANN, as the first initial last name. And then I also do a podcast that's more architectural related, and it's called Archispeak Podcast, and it's archispeakpodcast.com. So you can certainly visit the webpage there, listen to some shows. It's not always strictly about architecture, but usually about the industry and it's part of running the business of being a small firm or even a large firm architect as well. So there's a lot of variety there, and sometimes we yell at clouds too. So that's a lot of fun. So those are the 2 best places to find me.
Great. Well, thank you for taking the time to join us tonight. Really appreciate it.
Sure.
Kelly, I know you told us at the top of the show, but how about the bottom?
You can find me on Twitter as Verso. And you can also find me volunteering for App Camp for Girls. I'll make sure I give App Camp a shout out at appcamp4girls.org. You can find out more about what we're up to over there. And you can also find me over at macobserver.com doing usually podcasts, and then the occasional, this conversation has given me a bunch of ideas for longer sorts of pieces that I probably should dig into and write about with my perspective on all this stuff, because I've been trying to buy weird things for my house that I can run with my phone for years now. So
great. I think we can expect to see some commission checks from the ideas we've given you.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Good. Yeah. Yeah, okay. Allison, wrap us up. Where can we find you and when you're not here?
You can find me on Twitter at Apple Alley, Apple ALLI, and you can find my dear friend Robert Carter and I hosting the Tech Doctor podcast, which is a largely Apple-centric podcast that focuses some on accessibility, but we're also trying to go more mainstream. And we are at dr-carter.com. That's dr-carter.com.
Great. Thank you for being here and for sharing your wisdom.
Thank you.
Folks, I'm Chuck Joyner. This is the MacJury on MacVoices. Not sure we reached any conclusions, but hopefully we shared a lot of information that you can use when you're considering some of these things. Maybe some of the pros, the cons. You definitely got to hear what we want. So we'll see if Apple delivers at some point in the future. Until the next time, thanks for watching.